G'day, I'm Josh. You might have seen me before. Uh, I'm gonna be spending a couple of hours today just fleshing out the contents of the secret lab in my game. So it's kind of like a government lab with hush hush experiments. Somehow the player ends up inside this experiment and, classic game story where you have to solve random problems. Who knows why? You just do. So I was thinking, for a secret lab, what puzzles can you make for a secret lab? So I've played Doom 3 recently, and Doom 3 is basically set entirely inside of a secret lab. Basically a secret lab on Mars. And it's got scary stuff and monsters. So that's kind of the vibe I would like to go for. But Doom has a lot of platforming, and so my game doesn't actually have an up-down axis, so obviously I'm not going to be doing any platforming. But I'm kind of interested in, like, for example, at the very start of the game, you enter and there's like a minigun on a ceiling, and you have to avoid and it like points at you as you walk along to kind of be threatening. But yeah, basically stuff like that. You'd be walking down a hallway, maybe you hide behind things, and there's like a laser that like shoots at you, or maybe I could even do it with some kind of creature. Maybe there's like a slime shooting creature or something that shoots slime at you. It's basically all the same thing as a minigun on the ceiling. And then other things like pushing boxes around to get to a destination. Like in Doom 3, there's a lot of random, like, crushing devices. Like, there's just a thing that goes bang, bang, bang over and over, and then you have to, like, run through it. You have to run through this random thing. Like, why do they build it like that? Why wouldn't they just put a path around the machine rather than forcing you to walk through it? It makes no sense. Anyway, so that's the kind of stuff that I want to build today. So I've already got kind of like Jaws of Death, kind of like from the original Prince of Persia, where they had these like walls that chunk it. Yeah, and then, you have to run through it really fast or it chops you in half. So I got some of that going on, and I've got, so this is kind of an excuse for me to totally sidestep any kind of storyline and just be like, you are stuck in this scary environment, and then you just have to get out. And so it can be as long as I like, it can be as complicated as I like, it can be as inexplicable as I like. So maybe I'll post this stream on Twitter just to maybe possibly get some viewers. So I'll just do that and I'll be right back. No, I won't. I'll just be right here while I post it on Twitter. Alright, so how do you actually share the stream? There's a share button. Okay, here we go. I don't know if these hashtags are relevant anymore. Game dev, indie dev, made with Unity. Yeah, other people seem to use them. I think I'd rather be able to get away with not having to use any hashtags to get attention, but whatever. I'll just use them for now. Yep. Oh, game dev YouTubers. Someone added me to their list. Great. Alright. Let's actually get on to just making some stuff. So I think I'm going to start by kind of just placing walls around the place and... Well, I'll move myself into the bottom corner so you can see it. There we go. So, that's the thumbnail. Looks pretty. I like these glowy tubes. So simple. I'm so proud of my lighting system. So let's turn the lights off. My friend said they look like toilet paper roll holders, but they look a lot different once you yeah, you can imagine some toilet paper rolling off that. But I think they don't really look like toilet paper roll holders once they're lit up. They look like science tubes, like they should. And there's some particles that spawn it when you're actually playing the game. Whoops, wrong shortcut. So, what are we doing? So I'm gonna just place walls. I'm just gonna place walls around the place and just throw like devices in there, like throw some scribbles in there and that I'm gonna replace later with actual game logic. So let's do that. So let's start with that machine gun room, or, you know, the dodge bullets hallway. Bullet hallway. So that's what I'll call it. And then I'll just chuck it over here as the center of my level. And then what I need to do is add some walls. So let's start with some walls. And then I will edit my wall mesh. So if I move the player here, how big will this hallway be? It needs to be big enough that I can stick like a thing at the end. So let's draw. I'm just going to add a note and go into drawing mode. Sorry, there's a bunch of random like ceremony that I have to go through every time I make anything new. Okay, so I got my simple note, and this will be the gun. And then when I go to edit the drawing, of this note, this used to work much better. If I just click on that, no, it doesn't work anymore. Did I break it? Oh, there we go. Now I should be able to take notes. Ignore that, maybe I'll fix it later. So, what do you have? Like a big old minigun thing at the end of the hallway. Okay, so that thing will shoot bullets at the player, like that. And so the player has to actually dodge it, right? But I guess the challenge would be to somehow, like, you either have to dodge it or you have to destroy it, or both. So maybe for this part, you can have... Why did the shortcuts just totally break down? So, say you had a hole in the wall right about here. And you have to try and get out there. So, how about it's like really close to the gun? And then, yeah, so that's the goal. and then there should be some like obstacles in the way. So let's just add a note here. Obstacles. So maybe there's a wall over here. No, that seems way too small. I'm not very good at this, so well, why doesn't that work? If I make the hallway like much bigger, how about that? And then there's enough space to have like things that you can hide behind, and then you have to run between them to like there's still space for the gun to actually shoot. That's the main point. So if I have my gun kind of in the middle there, and then why did I go over there? I don't want that to be like that at all. Okay, so if I make this wall much smaller, and so you sort of have to hide behind that block there, and this block up here, and then like another one that's on the wall up here. The trick is that, like in Doom 3, you can just look down the hallway and you can see that there's a gun at the end, and it's pretty obvious. But in this game, there's a really limited like distance that you can look, and so I don't really know how I would handle it. So maybe I should test it first to see, like, what if I put a camera that wraps around the player and the gun, and just sort of see how zoomed out it gets. So if the player's up here, and then I put a camera. So I have this thing called surround camera. So my surround camera will surround the player and another thing. So if I tell it to surround the gun, which is down here, where that circle is down there, if I make the camera trigger so that it surrounds the gun. Yeah, so you can see this sort of faint box here is where the camera would be. So if I move the player down here, then the camera is like that. If I move the player up here, then the camera is like that. And what I want is for it to kind of zoom in and out. I think camera triggers actually require some kind of bounding box. I should really add that as a, well, what a mess. I should really add the box collider or something, or like an error message. Just a second. Every time I open VS Code, it just complains a lot and asks me to type in a password, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, let's make the box collider nice and big so it takes up that whole hallway space. So the camera trigger is If I move the player. Okay, so you see that grey box. So it's shrinking as I get closer to the gun. And then as I get further away, it grows, and then it reaches like a maximum size. And so if the player's like all the way up here, then I'll need to modify the trigger's maximum distance, I think. Whoops. Went a little bit nuts there. Yeah, so if I set the maximum distance nice and big, then the camera will zoom out like a lot. And so that means I can start it right about where the player is. So say you enter in through a doorway that's like in the corner. So let's just chuck a door in there. Like that. And then you enter in, and this gun starts like shooting at you, I guess. So let's just add another obstacle to the mix. So if I have an obstacle like in front of the doorway, that makes sense, because then the gun won't start shooting at you immediately. And then you walk around the obstacle, and then you have to get to this one. And then I set the timer on the gun so it like charges up and then starts shooting after a certain time. And so that means that you have a very short time to make it to the next obstacle, next obstacle, next obstacle, next obstacle. So let's see what it currently looks like. I should probably add some lights, because it's not really going to look like anything if I don't. Then I'll add a floor. Everything looks better with a floor. No, let's just call it floor. 4. So I'll add a sprite polygon. Give it a texture, such as lab tiles. Texture that I've been using everywhere. Then if I edit the texture, I should be able to add some tiles. Turn the lights off. And then I'll stick them in the background where they should be. So now I've got ceiling orb light, which is pretty tiny. Let's just make it bigger, then add a couple of them down the hole. And add one around the corner here. Let's edit that sprite polygon. And we're good to go. So press play now. So basically I'm looking at the camera right now. And so the camera doesn't actually show you anything to do with this gun right now. Which sort of tells me that there's something seriously wrong. Because it should zoom out like a lot. I would say there's probably a bug in my game. But you can imagine, this is the player here. I can even speed the player up while it's inside this hallway. So he runs. I'm going to demonstrate some of the power of my... player hijacker system right now. So watch this. If I add a object, and then I'll call it like lean against wall hijacker. And then what I'll do is I'll add a poser, and I'll simulate it. And I'll move him over here. And so I want him to be... Okay, so the actual center of this hijacker should be in the same place as that. So what I want to do is force the position and, well, not force. I want to move towards and face with myself. So what it'll do... What a mess. The speed is set to 0. So it's currently using... Okay, I've never actually tried this mode before. Clearly it doesn't work very well. But I'm just going to add a debug player outline. And I'm going to rotate it so it points upwards. There seems to be like 0 friction on the player's rotation, which is not how it should be. But anyway, I wish it didn't do that. Why is it doing that? It's just... There mustn't be any friction whatsoever. I have to go offline for just a minute. Alright, just getting random calls, not a problem. Alright, so he's still bouncing back and forth, which is not really what I want at all. It's mesmerizing. I think there used to be some kind of friction, but apparently there isn't anymore. So I'm just going to force position rotation for now. That's what he should look like. He should be in that orientation. And then what I want is a box collider to sort of surround the area where this takes effect. So kind of when he's over here, he will kind of prefer to face this direction. Or even prefer to walk towards that position, I guess. Maybe I'll just say face towards. Face body towards. And then... That's really frustrating. I don't think the player would do this. But let's just stick to force pos rod. And then... Yeah, whatever. And then what I'll do is I'll add a right hand target. I'll add a face head width. Or even a face head towards. So I'll go create empty. Face towards. And then I'll give that a kind of a debug circle or debug X. so that I can actually see it. And so I'll make him face his head towards that. Face head width. No, not face head width, face head towards. There we go. Now he's looking at that plus sign that I just made. And so if I move the plus sign around, you'll see he'll actually look at that. And then what I want is to, I think that's most of what I want. So I'll say face body width. Whoops, I just moved the floor. That was not what I meant to do. So you can see he tries to move towards that angle, except that he keeps rotating, which is not how it should work. If I rotate him, then he will prefer to rotate that way, and then he should stop right about here. That's where he should stop. Anyway, so now if I simulate the game, if I actually play the game, you should see that if I go over here, no, if that's a trigger, obviously, then he should, there's so many steps. So this should be a trigger, and then I need a hijacker. I need a poser hijacker. Active poser hijacker. There we go. Let's see how it goes now. If I walk over here, he will face that way, right? Walk over here, he'll face that way. Maybe I should even like make him prefer to walk towards the wall. Like maybe if you're moving, then it won't do anything, but if you aren't moving, then it'll move the player to a fixed location. That's kind of a useful idea, I think, so that I can sort of have control while also giving the player control. But that's not really important. Let's just I'm just gonna go into scenes, lab, and then I'll just drag that into the lab. No, I'm just gonna make a generic prefab. That's what I'm gonna do. Lean against wall hijacker. And then what's great about this is that I can just chuck it in wherever I want one, and then I can edit that face towards position so that he's looking over here when he's backed against this wall. And so forth. So if I just copy that down there, and then copy this guy down here, and so forth. So now there's some walls to back against. I'm not really sure why the camera doesn't work, but anyway. The point of this video was to actually do some scaffolding. So let's actually do that for once. I do hope the microphone is working. Let's just check. So let's... Yep. So that's one puzzle. Then obviously I'll want more puzzles. So I'll make a second, well, I'll make another one. I'll make a let's see. So there's this level in ZZT ZZT. Let's actually find it. Hey, so if I go here, if I go to YouTube, and then I just find footage of the town of ZZT, then you'll be able to see what I mean. Town of ZZT. There it is. This is kind of what I'm looking for here, right here. So there's these lasers that kind of turn off and on in sequence. And what you have to do is actually run through them. And if the lasers hit you, then you die. And you have to move fast. So I think I want to recreate something kind of like that. So let's do that. Laser sequence laser. So if I put that guy over here, move the player. How about I just copy some stuff from the previous thing? So if I copy the walls into sequence lasers, and then I copy the floor, that seems reasonable, and just edit it. Just delete all of those, delete all the walls. Actually, I'll just reset the coordinates of the walls. I'll reset the coordinates of the floor. And then they are centered on the sequence lasers thing. Alright, let's go. Let's add some floor. Let's add some lights. And then add some walls. So let's see. Say this wall has a bunch of lasers on it, and you have to run through them real fast. But then maybe there's a kink. Maybe there's like a kink in the wall. So it goes out here, and then it goes down here. And so you start somewhere up here, and then you have to make it through this gap. So that's the trick. So there'll be a laser shooting through this gap, and then there'll be more lasers down here. So you'll have to go down and across and down. And there'll be lasers on, well, there'll be lasers all over the place. And you have to dodge them all. So if I get a wall laser, just stick one in. And just make, I don't really like Unity's copy pasting function either. It doesn't really work how I want it to. So if I just have like a whole bunch of them. So if I duplicate those, select all of the current ones, duplicate them, and then if I select all of the lasers so far, sort of centered around that hole down the bottom. Now you can see the player is being hit by the laser. So the player can actually fit between the lasers, which is probably not what I want. I have to think about that. What if they alternate walls? How about that? So if I select each second laser, and then I rotate them all so they point the other way, and then put them on the other wall, then I should be able to actually make them closer together, I think. So if I just edit this wall, oops, the player should be able to fit through this hole here. Yep. So the player can fit through that hole. Then what I want is for the player to not be able to avoid being hit by the lasers. Okay, so that's kind of tough. And often the player will actually be facing like this way. So it's like, it's quite a lot of leeway. What if I just move this one up? And then you really can't avoid it. I'll just move it so it's just not touching, and then I'll move this so it's just touching. And then you really can't avoid it. Alright, so that's about as close as they have to be for the player to be unable to avoid the lasers. So if I delete all those, and then I just like duplicate these lasers up several times. What just happened? And then somehow I will sequence all of these lasers with an animation so that they turn on and off. Maybe a script would be better. Script would probably be better. Anyway. So hopefully you can imagine the player not being able to avoid this sequence of lasers over here. Alright, that seems like a challenge, right? Because you have to run down, then you have to run across, and then you have to run down again. And what I'll do is actually add like a on-screen activator so the lasers don't have to recalculate when they're not on the screen. So if I just get a whole bunch of these lasers, stick them down here. I have to try not to think too hard. That's always the challenge. Because I can strive for perfection, but there's really no such thing, and nobody really cares. So I just have to do what has to be done. Where'd that light go? Here it is. Move it inside the hallway. Oh, that's even kind of nice, because the light on the floor kind of provides a bit of a hint as to what you have to do next. Oh yeah, that looks really nice when the lasers are in the dark, actually. What if the lasers are like almost completely in the dark? I keep talking about the fact that I need to go fast, but And then I keep spending ages doing stuff. So let's just add more. Let's just add more so it's like really a challenge. You have to keep running. And maybe I'll do exactly the same thing as before and just like make you go back across. Why does it stop there? Oh, it's because there's nothing to illuminate. So they're just going to fire halfway across the universe and hit this wall over here. From earlier. Alright, so let's turn the lights off again. And just edit the walls. Okay, different challenge this time. You need to, as a player, okay, why can't I select anything? As a player, you need to go down, and then you have to go around and start going back up again. So if I grab these guys and just stick them on the back of this wall, basically. So if I move that down, and then maybe I should add like some kind of rest, but like, yeah, I don't know. Not really sure how much it makes sense to talk while doing all this. I guess it's part of what makes people watch a live stream, but I got nothing interesting to say, so I'm just gonna make levels and see what happens. Looks pretty good to me. I just have to edit the floor image so it goes outside the bounds. Let's add like another light down here. Maybe even make it red for some reason. Just add two of them even. Okay. Let's see what it looks like to actually run through this. Move the player. So these lasers aren't going to kill me immediately. But let's see. Okay, so I got some nice particle effects going on here. Hopefully they're not dropping the frame rate too much. So it's kind of like a short exercise, I suppose. Maybe they'll only start turning off in sequence when you like press a button. So basically up here you would have to press a button, and then as soon as you press the button they'll start turning off in sequence, and then you have to run as fast as you can. And then down here is another button where you have to press it again and then do it again. Okay, so let's just do that. What kind of buttons do I have in this game? I don't think I really have a whole lot. Like I have switches. I have switches, I have plugs you can plug into sockets. I have like things you can pick up and like jam into things. So maybe I need some kind of like fuse switch circuit kind of thing, or a like a mad scientist switch, like those giant electric switches on a wall where you flick it like that. I'm not really sure. Or maybe you do something with some electrical panel and it causes some electrical sparks, which causes the lasers to turn off in sequence. Or maybe they just are running the animation at all times. It's hard to say. Oh. G'day, one. Are you still there? I don't look at the chat very often, so it's hard to keep track of it when there's not usually very many people online. Maybe if it like played a sound effect. Does it play a sound when someone comes online? It sends a message? Nah. I'm not really sure what to do. But maybe I should just sort of leave this challenge alone and move on to the next thing. That would probably make sense. Because it is supposed to be just scaffolding, just ideas, just throw them down on the board. So that's exactly what I'll do. That's exactly what I'll do. So I'll just move on to the next thing. What do I want next? Well, I'd like more puzzle type things, or like how about there's some robots. Like, okay, so Prince of Persia. How about Prince of Persia? I have to think about Prince of Persia. What kind of challenges are presented in Prince of Persia over and over? I mean, basically the original Prince of Persia, the whole game is just climbing around. It's just platforming, hanging off things. So in my game, instead of platforming, I have sort of direct interaction with objects. You pick them up, the player can drag them around the place, and it can directly interact with things. Heavily inspired by Limbo or Inside, I guess. And so if if platforming can basically be a core gameplay, I need to think about how my core gameplay applies to this scenario so that it's not... It's like doing the same thing over and over isn't necessarily boring, right? That's pretty much what games are all about. It's about doing the same thing over and over and just enjoying the repetition, I suppose, and maybe trying to improve, or like being surprised by what comes next. So like Inside, there's so much animation in Inside. But like Limbo, you spend most of the game just walking to the right, and then there's times when you have to jump every now and then, otherwise you die, or you slide down a hill, or you have to drag a clampy thingy along to take a spider's leg off. There's kind of random stuff like that. So I enjoy having like different stuff. I enjoy it when there is like a range of things you can actually do in a game. So from one bit to the next, I don't necessarily want the challenge to be identical. I want there to be, different stuff, which is why I've designed this whole character interaction system, because it's quite easy, honestly, to implement new ways to interact with things. I just have to think of what they actually are. Like maybe I just have to design puzzles and think of how they fit in later, which is pretty much what I'm trying to do. So for example, if there's I have this rope system. I have a rope reel system. So it's a thing where, you can have a rope on a reel and you can drag them around the place. Actually, I'll just start with that. So how about I have plugs that you have to connect to sockets. Yeah. What I'll do is I'll add a bunch of reels in a row, rope reels, or like cable reels in a row that have different lengths of cable. And then there's a bunch of hallways of different lengths, and you have to drag the cable down the hallways to plug them into the correct sockets, because the length of the cable basically tells you like which combination of sockets is actually possible, because the length of each hallway is actually different. So that's what I'll do. That's not a bad idea at all, actually. So how about cable length puzzle? Let's do the same thing. Walls, floor, light. Paste them in here. Make that the default. And then if I reset them to the origin, let's move the cable length puzzle somewhere else. Oh boy. Where is the origin of this? I don't actually know. It's at 0. I'm not really sure how the floor ended up over there though. It seems kind of weird to me. Why does it say that the center is down there? Is it because... Whoa. Where'd the arrows go? When you select a thing... Okay, there it is. You see that? Why is it that the center position of the walls is down here while the center position of this is up there? What? Yeah, I was confusing myself. Alright, let's just forget that ever happened. Okay. Dumb. Alright. If I select the walls and edit the walls. So what I was describing was basically you have a set of reels. So let's actually make a reel. Whoops, what just happened? I have no idea what just happened. Let's just add a reel. Reel. I wonder if I have a prefab that already... Yeah, I do. Let's just use that. Forget this. I already have a reel system set up in a prefab. So if I move the player here, then you can see the player should be able to interact with that reel directly. Okay, it's definitely not supposed to do that. Why can't I move the player? Why can't I move the player? It's because the pickup interaction tries to set a null snap point to something. Apparently, let's have a look. What did it just select up there? Player probably. So my hook has a pickup interaction on it. And it has 2 snap points. So it really shouldn't have 2 snap points. So let's just delete those. There we go. That's better. So I think it should work now. Alright. Now I can grab onto this hook and drag it out. Wow, that rope is not rendering correctly. I guess I broke something. And the hook isn't pointing the right way. Yeah, this is something that I haven't worked on for a while. And so it's got some bugs that have just accumulated as I've modified things over time. It's kind of frustrating, but easy to fix eventually, but I'm not going to fix it on camera. So it has stretch turned off, which means that like it should work, but it doesn't. So I'll look at that another time. But the point is that basically these reels can be different sizes. In fact, can I resize just the reel? There we go. So if I make a reel that's that big, make one reel that's that big, and then move the hook out here, And then if I put the wall kind of closer to it, then it won't have any issues with constantly unwinding. Oh, constantly coiling up. So the idea that I was trying to get across was that I have a bunch of reels and they are different sizes. So this one will be even bigger. This one will be even bigger. And then there are a few of them, so let's just keep adding them. Whoops. Maybe another one. How about 5 in total? Okay, that hook is getting real close. Move it out. Move the hook out here. Hook out here. Alright, so now I've got some reels. Maybe I'll make one, yeah, number 5 will be up here and it will be smaller. Reel. Okay, so I have these 5 reels. And what I'm going to do is make a bunch of hallways sort of around this space where you need to plug the correct, you need to take the cable into the correct hallway to hook it up. And so it's like a combination thing. So see how this has a max length of 10? And so these will be various lengths. So I'll make this 15, 20, guess what's next? 25 and 30. And so those are the maximum lengths of these cables, which basically means that that is as far as they will go. So I will demonstrate that in just a second. Just add some lights so you can actually see. Make the floor nice and big. If I move the player right about there. And play. Okay, so you can see I have a bunch of hooks on cables. I think I need to work out, I need to give it like a bigger radius on the reel itself. Otherwise the hook comes from the wrong place. It doesn't really make sense. But if I grab onto this one, which should be 15 units in length, 15 meters long, if I drag it, drag, eventually once I get to 15 meters, it will go. Okay, it stops, but for some reason the player can keep walking because there's a bug. But basically the point is that there's a maximum distance that the cable is willing to go. It's pretty glitchy. Nothing that can't be solved with a bit of TLC. And then obviously this will go down the really, really long hallway. So if I grab my walls, and then I just chuck in some walls, hey? So if I just chuck in a wall here, make like a really long stretch like that. It's a little bit thin. And then I'll make a, oh, what just happened? I'll make a wiggly one. Maybe it makes sense to make them intersect. Whatever, I'll do that. Okay, so I'll add like a space in the wall here. And then I'll add join over here, join over here, and then I'll make these two Beziers, so I can do this and that, and that, and that. Then you will do the same thing over here. The hallway will keep going. Make these two Bezier. I don't think I can select the Bezier handles. It's so laggy. What if I go up and over like that? Why does it always do that? It's probably because it doesn't have enough time to update the active one. So it just grabs the old one. So I have to just wait between clicks. And then I'll just drag out some straight walls here. It's crazy how expensive that is. Alright, I got this crazy thing here. So there'll be one place to hook over here, and there'll be another place to hook up and over here. Somehow I'm gonna have to make... Yeah, right. What if I just line it up like that? That's real good. All right. So I have to think about this logically and like decide what order the ropes are actually going to go down these hallways, because obviously maybe you could drag it up here and then across, and that would be one length, but that would disable your ability to hook up the shorter one, right? So there's a explicit order. Or maybe it'll try and deceive you and make you think that you're supposed to drag one that way and then one across this way, but actually you're supposed to drag one around this corner and then one around this corner, right? Or maybe I'll have two in a row and it will, maybe I'll have two of the same thing. It kind of makes sense. Like if I just delete these points here. Okay, it does not want to duplicate the walls. There we go. Unity can get really slow with just really basic stuff sometimes. Alright. I'll just make this one. Come on. What just happened? Did it just delete that? So frustrating. Walls. Just drag it in. Just add another wall there. Wonder if I can really easily modify the actual radius. It should be simple, right? Should be simple. Real. Ah, there's actually a radius on the reel itself, so if I just move that, there you go. Move it out there. So the rope is sort of, it kind of comes from the edge of the reel. Where's the reel for that one? Right there. There you go. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll just rearrange those. Ugh, that's not what I wanted at all. Just rearrange those so that they're actually located in the right order in this list here. Right, so if I basically have two kind of like that. Oh, right. There's already a clone of this. If I have two walls very similar to each other like that, then maybe one of them will go up and around that corner. Another one will go up and around there. And then in this case, they'll go directly across and then cross paths like that. I'm genius, obviously. Genius level designer. Can't believe how slow it is. Who even knows what it's doing? It makes it so slow. Alright, so you get this kind of overlap, but I don't think anyone cares. Alright. Okay. So let's just make the floor a little bit bigger. Make it a little bit more cozy in here. Yep. And then I will see what happens. So if I grab the short one, I think I'm gonna have problems with the light. That is correct. Oh wow. Okay, that didn't work at all. Some kind of serious issue just arose that I'm going to have to debug later. Debug later. What I'll do is I will just add more lights. Ah, that was the problem. It was like shining a light from inside the wall. So if I just add more lights, more lights, more lights, more lights, more lights, more lights, and yeah, pretty much the solution to all my problems is just more lights. Good. I don't understand Twitter at all. At all. Okay. See what happens. See, it's already reached its maximum length there, which means it's far too short. But if I grab the long one, for example, then it would go in this bottom passage, but it doesn't actually wrap around anything yet. So I'm gonna have to add that back. Then you drag it around here. Pretty much. And then the unfortunate way that this rope system is designed currently, well, I could automate it, but I have not yet automated it. So basically what I have to do is add like the rope points, I forget what they're called, so there's a thing called rope reel marker, rope markers is what this should be called. And so this will contain like a million different rope marker objects. And each marker can have a radius. So I'll show you how this works. Whoa. What just happened? I am not entirely sure. Who knows what that's doing? So these are supposed to have a radius attached to them, but they don't, apparently. I don't know. Doesn't matter. So the basic way it works is that you just plonk them wherever a rope should sort of wrap around something ever. So anything that's like a inward facing corner is where you want them to be. I don't know. Like, it's supposed to be gizmos that like show you. Maybe I should have a look at that, because that seems kind of important. It's supposed to draw a circle, but it only does it if the camera bounds contain the thing. So maybe there's some kind of bug with that. Let's just remove the check and see what happens. No, still can't see it. That's extremely disappointing. Supposed to draw a circle at that position with the radius with red and 8 points. But somehow it doesn't draw it. Maybe it's not actually turned on in this list here. Let's have a look. Rope reel marker. Nope, they're turned on. Who knows? Like, that's just inexplicable, isn't it? Like, how am I even supposed to guess what's happening? I really have no clue whatsoever. What's happening there. So, I guess I'll just ignore it. It's really disappointing. It's supposed to draw a circle. It's not drawing the circle. Whatever. You just have to imagine that there's a little point at each of these rope markers, and it's basically how the rope system figures out that it's supposed to wrap around a corner. So if I just add tons of them, tons and tons and tons of them. And then I should be able to demonstrate what this thing can actually do. So if I grab this super long cable, super duper long cable, and then I just drag it, it's super buggy. If I go in here, it should start to actually wrap around the corners. But it doesn't, because I never actually attached the rope markers to the reel. So marker groups. That is supposed to have the rope markers in it. Let's try that again. Now it should work. There we go. Now it's working. Watch this. If I go around the corner, it wraps around the corner. There is some adjustability that I get. I get a lot of choice over like how it chooses to wrap around that corner. I can't actually fit in there while I'm carrying the hook, which is a problem, I think. Since it makes it impossible to actually get in. If I drag it around here, you should see it wrap around there, kind of vaguely. And then if I let it go back, it will pull itself back around all of those corners that you saw before, and it will wrap itself back around the reel. So if I go back, the hook should be back on the reel. There we go, back on the reel. The reel is rotating slightly. I don't know, don't think about it. Alright, so I've got these reels and some paths with things at the end that you should be able to hook it onto. I think I'll leave that one for now and move to the next kind of puzzle that I would like. Let's make another one. What's this puzzle gonna be? I have to think of another puzzle. Alright. I kind of like the idea of, I don't know, lava streaming out of something into a hallway and sort of filling it up. So I can just animate that kind of thing. So I can have like a stream of lava that kind of has an edge that flows, wiggly edge that kind of goes up a hallway and then turns corners and stuff. And maybe there can be like a maze. Yeah. So lava basically flows into a maze, and then you have to actually solve the maze while the lava is filling the maze. How about that for a challenge? So, what if I save this for now? That's a good idea. So, yeah, that's a basic idea. I think I want to just like draw what I mean. Open up Krita, pull out my pen, and give me just a minute. So basically, you got a maze, and the player would somehow be in this maze, trying to solve it while the maze is filling up with lava. Okay. Basically. And so over here you've got some orange stuff to represent the lava, and it's kind of filling up like that. Well, even better, like it'll actually be, it'll fill up in all directions. So it'll require a little bit of programming, it'll probably be like several days worth of programming, I guess, to make something like this work. It would be nice if I could come up with like a really simple method of making it happen without having to animate like a billion things as usual. Yeah, it shouldn't be too hard. Like, I already have a graph system, so I should be able to just like draw a graph and then measure a distance along every path of the graph and then somehow populate it with meshes. I don't know. And so when you go down here, you can see that the lava kind of, kind of fills up the space. And then you have to run away as the player. Here's the player, 2 arms, 2 eyes. And that's the challenge. So basically, I guess at the start you'd have, you know, classic, you got a lever on the wall. You pull the lever, and then some kind of scary looking doors open up. That used to be meshed together in the middle here. And then you have to run through the doors. And what happens in the meantime? Some kind of like crazy looking pipe thing sticking out of the wall just starts spewing lava all over the place, and then it goes through that door. And so you get some kind of time, because this opening room here has a size, and obviously the lava won't just spray directly onto the lever. Anyway, let's do it. I think I should be able to get away with like a lot of hacks. So maybe instead it's just like maybe instead I basically just implement it by placing like regions. So if I place a region up to there, it'll basically stretch out the image until it gets to this width, and then there'll be like children, and so it'll start stretching this image out until it gets to some width, etc. And so when it gets up to here, it'll start spitting out one in this direction and this direction. So those are the 2 directions that are children of this first direction. And then once it gets up to here is when it will start spitting out one in this direction and this direction. That doesn't seem too hard to implement, honestly. And then I just have to sort of like make them merge together nicely. That shouldn't be too bad. Shouldn't be too bad, he says. He says, famous last words and all. So, lava maze. And that gives me an opportunity to make some sweet lava shaders, etc., and like particle systems and all that kind of stuff. So let's go. Let's add walls. Lava maze. Center of the lava maze over here somewhere. And then I will add what will I do? Maybe in the next live stream, I'll make it a little bit more specific. Well, obviously, I wanted to just flesh out a whole bunch of stuff, and this helps me to... Yeah, this is a mess. This helps me to just create a lot of stuff in a short time. But in the next live stream, I'll just make a shader, right? I'll make a shader, it'll make the live stream shorter and more interesting, and I'll have a very specific goal. But for now, I am going to just flesh out this maze that I just described. So let's just copy over the walls and the floor as usual from the previous level. They should both be centered on their parent. Alright, so that floor is so huge. Let's move it like that. Got my sweet lab tiles. And then I'll probably want some lights as well. But I think what I'll do, I'll just start with the entrance. Entrance walls. Have the classic box room thing. And then on one of the walls will be a lever that you pull that will activate the door and the lava. Who even knows why anyone would build this, but that's not really the point. It's supposed to be secret and dangerous, and that's why you're not supposed to be there at all. And so you don't have any right to ask any questions. Because you're not supposed to be there. Alright, so let's add like a wall lever. Lever. Red-green lever is what I called it, because it has a red side and a green side. So how about I put it on that wall, move this a bit closer. I'll add ye old sliding door. What is going on? What is going on? I don't understand. Alright, ye old sliding door. Which will slide out of the way to right there. When you pull the lever, it'll open the door. And then there will be a sweet lava pipe thing. So that's a good opportunity to make some textures. So if I go into models, I've got a file called template here somewhere. I think I've reorganized the files so that they're not organized by name. Template in the lab. So I'll make my lava pipe. Mario should definitely not go into the lava pipe. I think that would be a bad idea, honestly. So let's just make a sweet looking pipe. Pipe that spews lava. What does one of those even look like? So maybe I'll add some kind of like, it has to look kind of concrete-y. So let's darken it. Add a bit of noise maybe. Noise texture. Oh, whoops. Just add a mix RGB node. And use that to drive the factor. One darker than the other. Okay. I don't really want it to look 3D. Don't really want it to look 3D. I just want it to look kind of like a graphic design element. You know? What happened there? I think I extruded it the wrong way. There we go. That should look a little better. If I add some bevel around this corner here. Maybe I should plug that into like a bump map. Not bad. And then it has to have a bit of a mess of like dried lava, I guess, or like, yeah, kind of black stuff, I guess. So let's see what that will look like. Kind of floating in the bottom there. And then pouring out the end. Then if I subsurf it, I should be able to create a pretty good effect. Annoyingly, that has gone over there. And also it goes below the floor, which is not really what I want either. So if I just move it up. What if I add a solidify modifier to this to add some fatness? I thought that would, thickness, make it fat, there we go. Then reduce the crease here, kind of make it pour out. Like that. And then that just needs to be like black, I guess. That is way too bright, I think, for concrete, or whatever I'm trying to represent here. It seems a little bit too shiny, maybe? Just too perfect. Is it, if there's such a thing? What if I boolean away some stuff? That's a good idea. So if I just hide this from the renders, but do show the wireframe, and then I boolean it from here, and then I can do some crazy stuff, just like chip out chunks of it. Okay. Chip out that chunk. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. And just take out a few random like bits and pieces from the pipe, like that. Like that looks pretty good already. Whoops. Add like a big cut out of the main pipe. Doesn't look very good actually. Honestly, just forget that I'm even on camera. But I'm enjoying myself. It sort of makes me concentrate, I guess, because every time I think about doing something else, I realize that I'm on camera. There we go. Now you can see some of that sweet depth. Not bad. Not bad. I don't really like that bumpy texture, but maybe it just doesn't matter. I'm gonna say it doesn't matter. Let's just move the camera down a little. Or maybe just move everything up a little. Like there. And then get the light bulb and just shrink it a little bit. Alright, well, it's way too close to the model, I think. Like way too close. Move it like up here. Power up like crazy. Really bright light bulb. The trick I'm trying to achieve here is a drop shadow that doesn't go outside the picture. There you go. I think I've achieved it pretty much. Not bad. Not bad. And then if I render it, what do I get? Concrete pipe where the lava will start spewing out. Alright. Let's add that to the level, hey? Lava pipe. Something like that. I think it's a little bit too intense, honestly. Like, one, the shadow catcher needs to be less prominent. And then two, this just needs to be brighter in general. What if I just use brightness contrast so I don't have to adjust those colors separately? Brightness, there we go. Now that texture there is actually black. It wasn't really supposed to be 100% black. All right, that looks pretty good. What happened to this lever? It went over there. All this stuff is going into the other level, so let's just make it not do that. Okay, and then I have to build a maze. So what does a maze look like? Wow, okay. Not that. So if I start here, probably makes more sense if these walls are made of metal, for example. So if I edit the wall mesh, select all the walls, make them use the metal wall texture. I really need to improve that texture. Well, maybe not. It doesn't really matter, honestly, actually, because it's just for the edge that you get when you shine a light on it. So it's not bad, per se, when it's like that. And maybe I'll make some lights actually follow the edges of the lava, which will light up the hallway, kind of make it look like there's lava lighting up the hallway. That's not a bad idea, in my humble opinion. Okay, so that will start spewing lava. Fill up the room. Does it even make sense? No, of course it doesn't make sense. Why would there be a lava pipe that's activated by a lever? But maybe I can make less not sense by like, it would burn the lever, you know, when the lava goes on the lever. Isn't that kind of dangerous? Not worth thinking about. Not worth thinking about. Did I say anything interesting in this? I guess there were these chompy doors. Like danger doors, I guess. I want like a different kind of sliding door where it kind of meshes together. But it's not important. It's not anything to do with gameplay, and nobody actually cares. Nobody actually cares. So let's just like start putting together that maze that I was already drawing just randomly in Krita. Something like this, like that, that, and that. Kind of like that. And then, so this provides a bit of gameplay time as well, because you have to play it quite a few times probably, unless you get really lucky. Because it'll kill you. The lava will kill you. And then you have to, well... yeah, dead ends. Dead ends are great. And people not being able to see the dead end is even better. So stuff like that. I suppose. And obviously there's going to be something at the end, like just another puzzle probably. Like you get out the end, the door closes, and then there's another puzzle. So have a couple of dead ends like that. Maybe you go the same way again if you didn't realize. And so it sort of forces you to play over and over again. Kind of like what Limbo was about, right? It's sort of, the point is that you have to die to learn how to play the game. So I'll try and stick to that kind of idea. And I'll try to make the most obvious way. Like, I'll try to sort of guide the player towards the dead ends. So, like, if you just turn straight away, or like if you feel like it's safer in a certain direction, then, well, yeah. I feel like maybe what it should do is the lava should split up, and then it'll go around, and like it'll join back up at some point. And so, like, if you go either way, you will be trapped between two bits of lava, right? So if I just, like, if you go up here, then you'll hit the same path as if you went the other way, right? So it's a huge misleading thing. So it's like the two most obvious paths lead you to lava, right? Two of the most obvious paths. But then maybe what I should do is make it so you have to actually do something to be able to actually solve the maze. So it's not just running away from lava. You have to also like press buttons or like pick up something. Maybe you have to pick up a plug or like close a door behind you. That's a good idea. Like you close some kind of door behind you that like impedes the flow of the lava. Or maybe like blow up some dynamite, which causes a little rock fall, which impedes the flow of the lava again. So you go down here. I should probably make it long, right? Because like if you spend a little while running down some hallways away from lava, it's not really gonna hurt. I always feel like it's going to be boring, but as soon as you go in the game, it takes like 2 seconds to play through. So I just need to add more stuff, right? More stuff. So if I have like a cone, maybe the lava would spread out in the cone rather than... Yeah. Like it'll slow down because it has to spread out. I can encode this kind of stuff into some kind of tree structure. So I'll add 3 choices. Choices 3. And obviously, like, I don't want you to be able to even get lucky, because I want you to get to a place and then not realize that you're supposed to do something until you die. Right? You die because you didn't realize you were supposed to do something fast enough. Anyway, I think I'm actually going to end this at 2 hours. Anyway, it'll look really cool once I actually add some kind of lava flow system to it. So maybe I should have like, what if I just make like a component that has a list of sort of child lava flowers, right? So if I have a lava flow here, once it reaches a certain radius or whatever, it will hit this point at which it will... like if I give each lava flow a starting point. So if I have a lava flow that goes up this hallway, then its starting point would be here. And then what I do is I have a lava flow that starts here, and when it activates, it will grow. And then once it reaches that exact point in the world with like a radius or something, it will activate it basically, and this will grow to a certain size, so it'll grow till it's that big, and basically as it touches each thing along the way, it will start flowing in that direction, and so that will fill up a polygon with a thing, and so once it gets to that radius, it'll activate a different thing that fills up that way and then fills up that way, and etc. etc. I think it should work. I just need to make it look random enough. So like make the edge of the lava flow just kind of a little bit rough, moves all over the place, and so that when it starts flowing on a separate object, it'll look like a contiguous flow because there's so much noise in the edge of the lava flow that like you can't even tell that it's transitioning to a different thing. That's the basic idea. It'll take quite a lot of like, manual work, I think, to sort of install all of the flowers. But I think the result should be pretty good. And I should be able to use the same kind of thing for running away from water, running away from poisonous slime, I don't know, and so forth. So it's now 2 hours and I'm gonna go and have lunch. Thanks for anyone who bothered to watch. I'm going to stream probably making a shader in the next one. Let's see how that turns out. Thank you. Bye.